I'd like to
Perfect.
have a little bit of fun today with our opening monologues for today's guests and for those of you who are fellow Gleeks. Andrew and Allison are best friends. They are the hosts of the Gleek of the Week podcast, and today they are joining me on the Inspiration Show. And that's what you missed on Glee. Do I have your permission to post this episode of the Inspiration Show on social media?
Yes,
Absolutely.
of course.
So as I mentioned earlier, you are best friends. Can you share with us how you met?
Alison, I feel like you take this.
I love telling this story because Andrew and I met the summer before our senior year of high school in 2013. We were both doing a pre-college program at the School of Visual Arts in New York City. And I come in, I'm this girl from Midwestern Minnesota, and I'm on my own. My parents just left. And I'm kind of nervous, and I go down to this like social hour before we go to this bigger intro event for the pre-college program. And I'm wearing, of course, a Darren Criss t-shirt.
Of course.
Because I had just gone to his tour like a couple weeks beforehand in Minneapolis. And I'm kind of standing there. I think maybe I'm looking at my phone. And this kid walks up to me and is like, is that a Darren Criss t-shirt? And it was like, yeah. And that was Andrew. And ever since then, BFFs.
I know people thought that we knew each other. We went to the same high school during that college program. They were like, oh, they showed up because like we were like attached to the hip the entire 3 weeks.
That's how
we were there.
Immediately close.
Yeah.
It's crazy how like one person that you both like idolize, if you will, can bring you two together and like look at what you've done just from like that one t-shirt. And like,
no, yeah. Well, I even like on a more dramatic note, I guess like a week later was the passing of Corey Monteith. And so that was a real solidifier in our friendship as well, that it was like, this sounds so dramatic. It's like someone that you don't even know, like the passing of someone that you don't even know, but to like have someone like Alison to be able to be like, oh my God, this thing is going on.
Right.
How do we cope as 17-year-old Gleeks?
Yeah.
You know,
this is important to me, but it's also important to you, and we can share that with each other. And
it's like crazy to think about. When Corey passed, I was 5.
Really?
And, like, I grew up on Glee. Like I only started watching the scenes recently because like age appropriate. But like, I grew up on like the songs and everything, and like I knew like from such a young age how talented Corey was. But I think it was not only until I watched the scenes and I was older that I appreciated his talent more. And it's only really when someone passes away that you realize, wow, like what an impact they've made. And like it's so sad that it works like that.
Yeah.
So true. Gone too soon.
Yes, completely agree. So can you take us back to your first experience with Glee and what you were thinking at the time?
I remember I didn't start actually watching it like live on television until season 2. I think that I was like almost like too cool for like Glee. Like I was at the age where I was like, okay, I'm not watching this. This is a High School Musical thing. Like it's, I don't know, I'm not giving into this. But then I think like my interpretation of what happened was that my mom knew that I was gay and was like talked to her friends and I don't know any of this to be true. I never asked her, but like I think that my mom talked to her friends, and her friends were like, you should watch Glee with Andrew because they have this gay character and it talks about a lot of gay topics. And so we watched it, and immediately I was hooked. And I remember like looking the back DVD cover and seeing that like Quinn and Puck join the Glee Club, and I'm like, oh my God, how is that going to happen? And so I was immediately hooked. I watched all of like the first season, I guess like in a week or two, and then started watching live season 2, I think like once it came back after the Christmas break. So like the first episode that I watched live was the Sue Sylvester Shuffle.
Oh,
so, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yes.
How I started watching the show, I remember I was in like, I think I was in 7th grade, and my friend Livy comes up to me and she's like, Alison, have you watched Glee? Like, did you watch Glee last night? And I was like, no, I don't watch this, Livy. I don't know what that is. And she's like, Alison, stop what you're doing. You would love this. And the first episode of Glee I ever watched was recorded on a VHS tape in the guest room of my parents' house. And I know because it was like on this small TV that sat on a desk on a chair, and it was the Power of Madonna episode, and I can like see in my mind's eye like Kurt and Mercedes walking down the hallway in their Cheerios outfits, and I was like, oh, this is good. Ever since that, I was like, oh, sign me up, absolutely. And I watched the first season like Andrew on DVD that I think I probably rented from the library. Famously, I cannot return a library book on time without incurring some fees. So that was probably where that started. And then I started watching it season 2 live.
That's crazy. Those are such good stories and such good episodes to start with. I mean, they're all so good, but those episodes are iconic.
Yeah.
For real. Power of Madonna, peak.
I feel like my mom and Livy were in the same
They were on the same wavelength. Yeah. They were DMing each other. Like, we got to get these people together.
They're from the future, and they were like, we need this Glee podcast to happen.
Yeah. I needed that Glee podcast. So how would you say that Glee has like inspired you and impacted you?
Oh, I mean, I'm thinking about it way too much. So it's impacted me in an unhealthy way. But I mean, I guess like to follow up the last question, it did really help because obviously, and so many people have said this because it's true, that the representation on this show in terms of sexuality was unheard of at the time, and having multiple gay characters included in the series as the series progressed was just a game changer for me, because at that point it was just gay characters for laughs and wasn't treated seriously. It was the butt end of the joke. I remember watching like an episode of Sunny with a Chance, and like there was like a gay joke that really affected me and made me so upset. And so like a year later for Glee to come into my life, and particularly that scene between Kurt and his dad in the basement, I was just like, this is unheard of, unseen, and it just really shifted my entire idea of myself and what I could be. So yeah, I would say that's how it impacted me. How about you, Allison?
I mean, it inspired, I think, our friendship. I think even throughout the years, we've been best friends for almost 10 years now. And I feel like Glee was definitely a big part of that, and a big bonding, obviously, characteristic for us even before this podcast. So I think it inspired us in that aspect, which I really appreciate. It got me really into theater, and I really love the theater world and that sort of thing. And that was something new that I never even thought like that theater was a thing. And then I went to high school, and it was a big part of my life there, and a big part of my friendship, my friend group in that sort of way. Yeah, I mean, it inspires me every single day because I'm thinking about it absolutely constantly. What would Rachel Berry do?
Literally,
WWRBD.
Alison just answered my question literally perfectly by those, because I was just gonna say, like, I've seen Glee countless amount of times, and to talk about the ways that really it's helped shape me into the person that I am today and has inspired me, we'd be here for hours. But one thing that I have to say that I'm really thankful for Glee is it shows you how like you can have like the popular kids and like the football team and like the jocks and like the weird kids, if you will, how they all come together and they have this one passion and one talent, and they really share it. And this passion and the talent, it brings them together, and that's how they express themselves.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. So when did you decide that you wanted to create Gleek of the Week and share your thoughts of Glee with the world?
I think, I don't know. We could argue about whose idea the podcast was first, Andrew.
I think, okay, what happened was that it was like early pandemic. I want to say like maybe like April 2020 that you were like, I really want to do a Glee podcast. And
I really wanted to do it. I really do
too.
And I was like, at that point, I was like, I don't know. And I was like, I really want like a good idea for it, because like I didn't want to do, nothing against the Rewatch podcast, obviously. Like I didn't want to do like a rewatch podcast because I think that everything that's been said about an episode of Glee has been articulately said by other Glee podcasters. And so I was like, I want like a really like fun idea that we can get other people involved and maybe stir the pot. And I think I had this Glacket idea already in my hard drive for the longest time that I just created on a whim years ago. And I was like, wait, I have this. Let's turn this into a podcast medium. That's my understanding of how everything went down.
No, that's exactly, because Andrew works in podcasts. So I feel like when I pitched it to you, you were like, like I do that every day.
Yeah.
Like, but it's really a passion project, and I wanted to do it so bad.
Yeah.
I have to ask you, what do you do for work? Because you photobombed Leah and Jonathan at the Tonys, not once, but twice.
Okay. I bounced around a lot, around different jobs, but primarily I produce podcasts, but that in particular, a good friend of mine works the ticketing department at the Tony Awards, and I was looking for work at the time, and so I was just like checking that all the nominees were in their seats during the ceremony, and so I just happened. I feel like people will think that I'm lying, but it just so happened that I was standing right behind Leah and Jonathan the entire evening, and it really was a Gleek peak for me.
They were literally not a Gleek if you haven't photobombed Leah and Jonathan there.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's so good.
So you've had both Glee cast members and fellow Gleeks join you on the podcast. What is your favorite thing about speaking with cast members and your favorite thing about speaking with Gleeks?
I think my favorite part about talking with cast members is getting to see little sneak peeks, little snippets of things that I can only assume happen behind the scenes, or scenes that I really like. Like when we talked to Derek Nelson.
Derek was also on my podcast. Yeah.
He's so awesome, such a good soul of a person. But when he was on our podcast, he gave us the tea on this whole scene.
Fake it out.
Yeah.
Fake it out, which was really, really cool, because that had a whole internet lore about it. And to finally get it from the source was really fun.
Oh my God, he told us that like Leah Michelle can control what eye she
cries out of.
I was just like,
and he told me about like the Purple Piano Project when he did We Got the Beat.
Yes.
That was so cool.
Yeah.
That's Derek. He's so awesome.
Yeah,
Derek's
really
awesome. Josh Sussman, who plays Jacob Ben Israel, was on the podcast.
Long blogosphere.
Yeah.
So good. And we've talked to a lot of people from the Glee Project as well, which was the reality show. And that was a big part of like my youth, me growing up on the internet, and to finally like talk to them just feels really full circle. But I will say that what I like about talking to fans and listeners of the podcast is that we can be a little bit more real with them, because I feel like when we're watching a music video with somebody that was there, it's kind of hard to critique it in a
100%.
in a certain lens, right? And then when we're talking to listeners, it's like, did you see that? What was that all about?
Jenna Ushkowitz tripped. Did you see that?
What is Kitty wearing?
Yeah, what is Kitty wearing?
Oh my gosh. So that's kind of what I like. Neither one is better to me. I feel like, and I always say, we had Michael Olivier on the podcast, who was one of the warblers from season 6. And we made a decision on the Glacket that people continue to bring up. And I'm like, y'all have Michael Olivier in your Zoom call and you will believe whatever he says, okay? They're great. It's both of the kinds of guests are amazing.
Going back to like those warblers numbers, I am still so mad that they cut out I Want You Back for the
Oh my God. Well, I'm glad that we at least got that as a on YouTube after the fact.
But it would have been so good in the show.
Yeah, no, I agree. But that makes me think about like all the performances that we just truly don't even know that we're missing, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So your podcast brings me so much joy and laughter, and I love hearing your opinions as well as your guest opinions. But your podcast is dedicated to finding the best song on Glee. So you use a method called the Glacket. Can you share a little bit about the Glacket and what sparked that idea?
Andrew, you go with this because this is your baby.
This is my baby. The Glacket was created by me in my senior year of college when I absolutely should have been doing schoolwork.
No.
I remember spending like I think like an entire week of my life just like going through, and the original concept of the Glacket was it was way more scientific, which sounds so like terrible and stupid to say, but it was like all the matchups made sense. It was like, okay, if there's two Mercedes solos that are sung originally by Aretha Franklin, they're against each other. And there's two songs from Bunny Girl that Rachel sings, they're against each other. And so like they all like were, it was just like all very calculated, the way that the songs were matched up against each other. And when I went through and did it myself, I was like, oh, I'm not really happy with the songs that are going through, because then it's like you're getting a bunch of like Puck solos like further than they should be, you know? Mm-hmm. And so me and Allison realized that if it was just completely random and it's just like, hey, we don't even know what songs are going to be against the other, then that makes it fair, I guess. And
keeps it interesting.
It keeps it absolutely interesting. Too.
Yeah.
What? Makes it funnier too.
Oh yeah, we have no idea. And so like it is really, really fun to see what the matchups are. And sometimes it's a blessing in disguise, because some of the matchups are really perfectly matched. And it's really fun to talk about.
Yeah. So what would you argue is the best song on Glee, and what is your favorite episode?
Ooh, okay.
Wait, now.
Okay, I'll go first. I think the song that is going to win the Glacket is Somewhere Only We Know by the Warblers.
I agree. 100%. It makes me cry every time I listen to it. I don't know why.
So good. It's so good.
The storyline, it went perfectly. And like Darren Criss is Darren Criss. Can't argue.
Darren Criss, absolute icon. I think that's going to win the Glacket for sure. And my favorite episode, I kind of bebop around. The episode I've watched the most is the New York episode from season 2, Nationals. And I that's my favorite in certain aspects, but I think my favorite episode right now is the prom episode from season 2, featuring Dancing Queen, I'm Not Gonna Teach Your Boyfriend How to Dance with You, Rolling in the Deep. So good.
Rolling in the Deep is so underrated.
It hits different. It's so good.
I think that's where we differ, because I like another Glee cast cover of an Adele song that I would say is my favorite song on Glee. The Rumor Has It Someone Like You.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you don't say that. Yes.
I think it elevates both of those original songs. I just like any of the Glee songs that are different from the original, that they offer something completely different, like Poker Face, how they did that arrangement, or any of the mashups. I think my favorite episode, Alison and I were just talking about this the other day. I think that it has to be Asian F from season 3.
Yeah.
I think it's only episode 3, but it feels like a mid-season finale. It had a hiatus after it, and it was like very high stakes, but it was like, it had hardly anything to do with Rachel. Very heavy like Mercedes plot, very heavy like Mike plot, which I think only happens like once.
Yeah, you don't get to see Mike's story a lot.
Yeah. But I love that. I love all the songs in that episode. Yeah.
I have to go back to our mashup discussion, because I have to say my favorite mashup that I feel is really underrated is Start Me Up and Living on a Prayer. It was so good, but it's so really underrated.
Mm-hmm. It's a bop. It's a workout jam. I play that on the treadmill all the time. It's so good.
And I know like Don't Stop Believing was saying on the show like 500 million times.
Yeah, of course.
But the pilot version, it hits different.
Yeah. Wait, if you had to choose, Allison, what is your favorite song and favorite episode?
Oh God, that's so hard. So I love Journey to Regionals. Because Faithfully, it's just so good.
It's great.
And like Bohemian Rhapsody, like nothing comes close to Queen, and I will defend that with my life. But Off is close second.
Yeah.
Very close second. I mean, grilled cheese is iconic.
Right.
But I'd have to say my favorite song, oh, that's so hard. I'm gonna have to go with Start Me Up and Living on a
Okay.
Really? Oh, that's
All
very
right.
fun.
I love that.
No, I have to say also Saturday Night Gleaver was
full of bops.
Very
awesome.
good.
Yeah.
The dance floor just added so much.
Yeah.
Icon.
Which character would you say that you relate to the most?
Ooh. I read this question because you sent these questions ahead of time, and I read this and I was like, I need to actually think about this, and I failed too.
I have mine.
Do you have yours?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I think in a lot of ways, not the problematic ones, but I think in a lot of ways I do relate to Rachel Berry because she's a woman with a chip on her shoulder. She's got something to prove. She a lot of times feels like nobody's with her and she's out there alone trying to achieve this unattainable dream. And I identify with that in a lot of ways. I was exactly like that in high school, like kind of mean, kind of difficult to work with. Maybe I still am, probably. But in a lot of ways, I was exactly like that in high school. I was like, you couldn't tell me that I was going to live in Minnesota the rest of my life. I was going to New York City and I was going to be somebody and I was going to be the next Anna Wintour and I was going to be a magazine editor and I was going to run this fucking town, or excuse me, I was going to run this town. And I mean, I obviously didn't do that. I wish I did.
Well, I mean, Allison, you're the greatest star. And like, no one's great on the parade. So, preach.
You are the Rachel Berry of the Minnesota Zoo.
I'm the Rachel Berry of Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities area. But I definitely, Rachel, I think in many ways, like, and I think with her relationship with Finn, I identify in a lot of ways, like she just doesn't even believe that, she doesn't think that she's a lovable person. So she doesn't believe that her and Finn could exist together. She's always looking for a reason why Finn is running away from her and why Finn shouldn't be with her. And Finn constantly has to be like, no, I do love you. You are worthy. You are great. Like, I promise you're amazing. And I do like that about Rachel Berry.
So I have to say, both the Allisons relate with Rachel Berry.
Oh my God.
Wow, it's in the name.
Like,
wow, main character energy.
Like, Rachel taught me, like, never stop dreaming. And like, when you want to do something, really like put your mind to it and like, don't dream till it's over. Also, really good song. Corey,
so good.
Of course.
I'm always thinking about that song. Andrew, what about you?
I remember in high school that the day specifically that I like tried to like meld my personality around being Santana Lopez. And I was that I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna start just being mean to people.
Well, because I'm all Lima Heights adjacent.
Yeah. I don't know if that's I can actually get away with saying that. But yeah, no, I think for a while I did think that I was Santana. But because I mean, in some ways that I am, I feel very emotionally charged like she is sometimes. But I feel like, I don't know. Alison, what do you think of me?
I think you relate to Santana in a lot of ways.
Yeah, like through Valerie Glee version, even though Naya killed it, I need a Valerie Andrews version.
Oh my God. I don't know if I can hold a candle to that, but okay.
No, I love that for Andrew. When your Santana side comes out, it's like, thank you. Love
I think a little Santana, a little bit of Kurt.
Okay.
Right? A little bit. Like I can be like grounded. I think that Kurt, we give him a lot of shit on podcasts, but I think when he's like grounded, I think he's great.
Andrew, Valerie, and then like a little bit of single ladies mashup.
Oh, okay. That would be the best song on Glee. That would be it.
We should do like a Glee reboot, but like we should do the three of us and like Derek will like be the band.
Please.
Exactly.
Storyline and everything. Like
I would love that.
Like I really want to know how Ryan Murphy was feeling when he was in the audience of Funny Girl opening night, like watching me on the stage, knowing like I wrote this storyline for like a show and now it's like real life.
Like how responsible do you think he feels? Do you think he thinks I did this? or do you think he's just like, it had to be like an out of body experience, in all honesty?
Yeah, I wonder how he was feeling, because I feel like Leah got herself there because like she's incredible, like that voice.
Yeah.
But like I feel like Ryan is kind of responsible because like he wrote it and he like showed everyone on television what she could do with
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I just can't even like put myself in those shoes. That just feels like so like eons away from anything that I'm capable of. But like he's accomplished so much, so I feel like this might just be like another page in the book for him. It's like, exactly.
He's like,
of course.
Yeah.
Leah Michelle is funny girl. What else is new?
In the role yet?
What?
Not yet. We will in October. Next month. Literally almost a month from today.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna have to go. I was in New York early August and I literally said I am not seeing Funny Girl because I need to see Leah. Like I just like I wanted to wait.
Yeah. We're planning out an entire Glee day leading up to Funny Girl that evening. So like doing what are we doing? We're doing Sardi's. We're going to Sardi's where Finn and Rachel had their date.
Bow Bridge.
We're gonna Bow Bridge. We're gonna go to Stardust Diner, which I don't know, like the singing waitresses where they worked in Glee.
So
it's gonna be a whole Glee Renaissance day. It's gonna be great.
So excited to hear about that day. So can you share with us some highlights or favorite moments from Gleek of the Week?
Ooh.
I was thinking about this.
Like I have some of my highlights, but I'm excited.
I think for me personally, I have really loved the episodes where we can be together in person. Whether it's all of me and Andrew and the guest, or just like me and another person in the room. I really loved the wedding episode where my best friend Paige got married and Andrew and I went, and each competition we asked a different bridesmaid what they thought of the Glacket, and that was super fun to do that in person in the hotel room getting ready. I really loved talking to Cameron Mitchell, because Cameron Mitchell of the Glee Project, I love him. In this little thing, I have a doll that looks like him that I made when I was in high school. Not crazy.
Totally not.
Totally not weird. But that was definitely a highlight for me. Yeah, I love it. I just love getting to talk to my best friend about our favorite show at least once a week. So
I know, and it doesn't get tired too. It really, like, you would think after over like 70 episodes that we would get tired of talking about this series, but I think that being a Gleek, and particularly 2022, is somehow so fun that there's still like rewards to being a Glee fan.
Exactly.
Like Leah Michelle being Funny Girl, or just like anything that's going on that it's like, oh, this is related to Glee. There's always like some sort of connection to Glee, and people will find it. And it's so funny seeing like people rediscover the show. But favorite moments from the podcast, I feel as though like some of them aren't even in the episodes themselves. I feel as though like because what I do for work outside of this is also work on other podcasts and book for other shows, that when I get a response from like Damian McGinty or Samuel Larson and I text Alison, I'm like, you are not going to believe that who we just heard from. Like, those are the moments that I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is happening right now.
I love those moments.
Yeah.
So many times. And I'm like, no way.
No way. Yeah, I'm sure that happens to you all the time. Yeah.
It's like when you grow up idolizing these people and like watching them, and they've shaped your personality, and then having the opportunity to talk to them, like it's so surreal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Insane.
Incredible. So has Glee taught you any life lessons that you carry with you?
I mean, I could be really corny and be like, don't stop believing.
Yeah, I use that one all the time.
I think being a part of the Glee fandom more so than the actual show itself has taught me, like, I've really come into my own, like, as a person talking about this show and making jokes about this show has really just taught me who I am. And it's because of that show that all of this exists. So I definitely attribute that to Glee. being part of the Glee Tumblr back in 2014, like that really made me who I am as a person today.
Yeah.
Glee, I mean, be yourself. It sounds corny, but being yourself is the easiest thing you can do. So why not do it all the time?
No, and like, I mean, Rachel says it in the pilot too, another corny answer, but being a part of special makes you special. And it's like, being like, this fandom is really like, people come out of the woodwork to show support for us and our podcast and everything. And even talking to you right now, Allison, like, this is like such an honor just to be like talking to you about our podcast and everything, and like talking to other Glee fans about this show, and like the ups and downs. It's just been such a fun ride. And I just love like getting DMs from people and hearing like, I've just listened to the entire catalog in a week, and I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm like, oh my God, I cannot wait to hear all of them. But yeah, I don't know, all of that.
To hear that like people have group chats where they talk about our episodes hits so wild. It's because so I'm funny. Like, oh God, like I forget that when I log out that people listen to it sometimes.
Right.
And then like I see it posted. I'm like, okay, I wrote like we do all these things digitally and I know that it exists, but then to actually have people respond and be like, me and all my friends are mad you said this. I'm like, yes, I love that so much. That is so good.
Yes. I mean, don't get me wrong. I absolutely love your podcast, but I love the polls that you guys do on your stories. There's literally, I don't remember what song it was, but there was just one poll I could not answer for 15 minutes because I
my God.
could not decide.
Yeah,
sometimes it's hard.
They're so hard. Someone DM'd us that our podcast is like sports for annoying people, and I was like,
I completely agree.
That is like, that should just be the description for the podcast. I feel
find a podcast dedicated to finding the best song on Glee.
Yeah,
exactly. Sports for annoying people.
Which arguably I feel like sports fans can also be annoying, but yeah.
It's like the cooler Cheerios though. That just came up in my head. Like
we're the cooler Cheerios.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Andrew and Allison, for joining me on the Inspiration Show. It was such an honor to speak with you. I had such a blast, and I don't think I've ever laughed harder and had as much fun as I did right now. Thank you so much for inspiring me.
Of course, it was an honor to talk to you, Allison.
Yeah, thank you again for having us on.